Hello and welcome to another Back to Jerusalem podcast. I'm Eugene Bach, your host for this time, and I'm coming to you live on delay from somewhere within the borders of Sweden. But it's not Sweden that I'm talking about. Right now, I actually have somebody on the line that I'm pretty excited about introducing to you. Leslie, are you there?
Yes, I am.
Thank you so much for joining us for the Back to Jerusalem podcast. I'm really excited about this short time that you and I are going to have together. I saw some information about you on social media in regards to just general health. And as I was kind of just scrolling through information that was coming across my feed, it kind of hit me that, right now we're in the middle of a pandemic. And a lot of people are just focused on, how can I keep from getting this disease? How can I, isolate myself and build a fortress around me and my family so that none of us, get sick or none of us get this disease? But I think that there's a lot of people that are missing out on just general health, on, how to keep their own immune system healthy where they may not really get sick in the first place. But before we
That's
jump into this and get knee deep, can you just introduce yourself for our audience? Who you are and what your background is.
Oh, sure. Thank you. Yes, my name is Leslie Adams. I am a co-founder and minister in personal ministry with my husband. Our ministry is Etz Hayim Healing, and you can find us at etzhayimhealing.com. But we are very, very centered in the health of a person, more likely the shalom or the wholeness of a person. So when we minister to people, we are actually ministering to their whole spirit, mind, and body for their wholeness and pure health according to biblical text and what God has said and laid out for us.
So, what is your background? I mean, what brought you
Yes.
into, kind of this idea of whole health?
The idea of whole health comes from, I guess you can say, going way back. The vision that I was given, it really burst out of something I had learned in high school when I was watching a 60 Minutes episode on athletes and those who had terrible injuries and couldn't return back to their sport, and basically got depressed. It was a mental health issue to begin with that I was concerned about. I got inspired and wanted to help these super athletes who seemed to just lose everything in their life that they thought was everything was in their sport. So from there, I just started to study sports psychology. I went to Louisiana State University. I'm also a former, Olympic hopeful, training for the Olympics. And fitness had always been a big part of my life in track and field. And I knew the benefits of exercise from the
Okay,
very
so
beginning. And I always
your background is that not only were you looking to help other athletes, you were a professional athlete yourself. You were an Olympian.
That's right.
Wow, that's
That's
awesome.
right. So I went ahead and got my certification in fitness and nutrition and started teaching others for exercise and building up a nutrition system for people who wanted to lose weight or just wanted a healthier eating habit. So I started doing that, and that was in Connecticut when I was in Connecticut. And that's where I met my husband in church. He and I both were teaching classes at church, and he was a martial artist, so he knew things about the body and its meridians, and I knew the body in terms of the physical aspects and health and nutrition. And together we went ahead and started studying Chinese medicine, and that's why we are now in Denver studying traditional Chinese medicine. And it's been a fascinating learning here.
My mind has been so closed off for China. I've lived in China for over 20 years, and so my mantra has always been: if I get sick in China, get me out. like
Really?
get me out of China. I don't want anybody taking some rabbit root and stuffing it up my nose. I don't want I do not want pins and needles going into my back. But the older that I get, I'm there are things as I get older, my body just naturally, there are things that I feel I hear more creaks and pops in areas where it didn't before. My wife just went through her first knee surgery last year, and we have really seen the lack of effectiveness of traditional drugs, pharmaceuticals, and we have really started to see the impact of nutrition and things that you can do naturally for your body that is so much better than just taking drugs and getting shots and going through invasive surgeries. I mean, my wife just went through a very simple knee surgery, but it was extremely invasive. It invaded her body in a way where her body did not like it so well, even with this minor surgery. And her knee will probably never be the same again because of this type of surgery. But just out of curiosity, what martial arts was your husband in?
Oh, he mastered mostly in Tang Sudo. But he had practiced so many different, modalities and practices in internal arts as well as Tai Chi, Bagua, Qigong, a lot of things. He studied Judo, grappling, Jeet Kune Do. He studied a lot of things, but mostly Taekwondo. That's what he started as a child. Okay. And he was very, very good. Became a grandmaster in the martial arts.
Okay, wow. That is exciting for me. I mean, I was never involved in martial arts until I went into the military and then was, taught these hand-to-hand combat strategies. And then both of my sons have been involved in martial arts from the time that they were really little up until university. So I really have appreciated it, since. And one of my closest friends, he was the president for Karate for Christ. And I met him for the first time inside of North Korea. And so when I met him inside of North Korea, we sat down at a little tea shop inside of North Korea. And I asked him, what do you do? And he said, I'm the president for KFC. And I didn't say anything, but I thought, holy cow, he is the president for Kentucky Fried Chicken. And I didn't know that KFC, I didn't know that KFC was Karate for Christ. And and he just assumed that I knew that, which I didn't. So okay, so you started off with your career in sports. I'm assuming you saw several sports injuries, natural injuries. Did you yourself suffer any significant injuries while being an Olympian?
No, I sure didn't. The closest I ever had was a hamstring pull. Nothing major. That's very common. And I was very, very blessed during my track years. LSU, Louisiana State University, was a wonderful place to start off with because we started off with a freshman class in 1984, where we started off the dynasty of dominance. We had 10 years of NCAA championship straight. So it was big news in track and field.
Wow.
And our coaches now, of course, are world-renowned. Olympians seek after our coaches from my college years all the time. And, they're just incredible coaches. And I've just been very, very blessed through it all. And so I just kept going after my college years and after training. I was training for the Olympics over and over. Never made the actual Olympic team, I have to tell you. I met my husband, and I don't know, something happened. I could not stay not pregnant. I could not continue training. I got pregnant every time.
Oh, that's hilarious.
My body just said, okay, I don't want you to train for Olympics. I want you to have a baby. And so I was like, okay, this happened. And my husband and I now, we have beautiful children. So my Olympic gold medals are my children. That's what I always say. I was much more satisfied having my children than my dreams of having a medal in the Olympics. So my children are everything to me.
Congrats
and they're
to you.
Beautiful.
Congrats to you.
Thank you.
I can tell you that we have quite a listener base in Louisiana. One of our main offices is in Baton Rouge. I try
really?
Yes, I only visit during the winter. I can't take the heat. I melt in the heat. But I go there during, crawfish season, and
Oh,
I love being there. Usually around February, March, April, and yeah,
right.
I can tell you we're going to have a lot of LSU fans listening and cheering when they hear
Okay.
you on this podcast.
Go Tigers. Amen.
Yeah. So we have you met with your husband, and now you guys are studying Chinese medicine. How has things been for you during this time of the worldwide pandemic?
Well, we haven't been affected of it. No one that I know of in my family or anyone has had it. We don't like being indoors. I have a large family, and we really being isolated was very, very difficult for all of us. Although my husband, he is older, he's 62 and I'm 54, and so there's more concern as they were talking about the elderly being more susceptible. But he keeps up with his exercise, and I keep up with his nutrition, and we do our own little practice on each other with our what we've learned so far in the needling or the herbs that we need from the Chinese school that we attend, and it's been okay for us so far. But yeah, I would definitely love to just tell you the best things you need to do to protect yourself and to prepare your body and mind and emotions, to protect and defend against COVID-19.
So what is the best defense that you can think, a natural, like a natural approach? I am genuinely curious because I'm kind of in I'm talking to you right now from northern Sweden, and I can tell you that I've been here since the beginning of January. I'm sorry, beginning of February. So I left China for 1 week. I left China for 1 week with 1 week of clothes for some meetings in the U.S. at the end of January, beginning of February, and was not able to go back because of the coronavirus. So I am a Swedish citizen with my family. We're all Swedish citizens, and we have a cabin up in the north that we came to. And I can tell you that since February, I have not seen anybody wear a mask. I mean, people are practicing social distancing, I think. I can't really tell if they're just practicing social distancing or being Swedish.
Right. Okay.
So I can't, but I mean, our restaurants are still open, at least where I'm at. Our church has been open. We've been at church every single week. We've
Wow.
even been doing communion service, and we go to kind of a state church here in Sweden, which means that when people do communion, we have one cup, one piece of bread that everybody shares. You go up to the front and you participate in the sacrament in that way, and so there has been this idea of herd immunity, of course. But like you, I don't really know anybody that has. I don't want to be too flippant about it, but my wife and I have gone the entire season without even a sniffle, not one cough, not one anything. Though we have probably been, I've been traveling during this time as well, back and forth to Germany, and being at the airport, being on airplanes, being around other people. And so I am genuinely curious to hear from you, like, what things can Christians do that would allow them at least to have a fighting chance before they even get sick, like as a preventative measure?
You got it. Well, I have to go to Chinese medicine. I do not go to Western medicine. Eastern medicine really understands the body better than anyone on the planet, in my opinion. They look at the spirit, mind, and body. And so wholeness is such a key factor because you're talking about energy. You're talking about your own personal energy. And Chinese medicine describes it healthy energy as Zheng Qi. Qi is energy. And Zheng Qi is an integral manifestation of the human body. So you want to have healthy energy. You want to have healthy Zheng Qi. And that includes what they call Wei Qi. Wei Qi, Yin Qi, Yuan Qi is those things in our bodies that work together to protect, to cover, like a blanket over your body. so that you have a strong immune system. It really speaks to the spirit, mind, and body. So we're talking about the physical, we're talking about the mental, and we're talking about the emotional to protect yourself, to build yourself up and have a fighting chance against any type of virus, especially COVID-19. So to start off with, happy people naturally have healthy Zheng Qi, happy Qi. And that is very important. People don't realize just being happy is very important, and they don't know why. People who are unhappy or depressed and being indoors and being isolated can make people depressed, can lower your defense system, your healthy energy.
I have
And
actually,
also,
I've thought of that. I'm sorry to interrupt you. I just kind of want to jump in here because you said something that is really important. Because I have thought about that. Like during this time of COVID-19, I have often thought, how many people have lost their jobs? How many people don't know how to pay their rent? How many people don't know how they're going to give food to their children? And that stress and that fear, what does that do to their immune system? Does that actually make them more susceptible to become sick than it would be had they been able to, be out from under that stress?
Exactly. It is important to do what you can to produce a good vibration or happy thoughts, happy environment wherever you are. And being indoors, it makes it super challenging. We're social beings. We are happier with other people, unless you are a hermit, unless you really like being alone a lot. You just don't like people, but
that's kind of my category. I actually like to be away from people, which is bad because God called me to China. And so I'm always surrounded by people. I'm like, all right, God, whatever you want. But I am the happiest when I am in remote areas away from people. And I say that excluding my family. I don't know why, but my family, I kind of feel like when I'm with my family, I am alone. I don't consider them to be around people.
You're probably a big, deep thinker, I would assume, because people who like to be alone, they want to think. They want to let their mind, their process. They find all kinds of ideas alone when they're thinking, and I can understand that. I'm assuming that you are. You're a deep thinker, I would assume.
I don't know about that. I think that there's a lot of people that know me that would say that I'm a very shallow thinker. Probably an anti-intellectual. But anyway, yeah, please go ahead.
That is true. But when we're just happy, whatever we're doing, do whatever you can to be happy. I would give that first tip to anyone. Do what makes you happy. You can't go by the news. I don't trust the news to give me the best information for my body or my mind and my sanity. I just don't. I have to get away from the news to be happy at times. But happiness is a vibration, okay? It produces good energy, good, healthy Zheng Qi. The higher your vibration, the greater your immune system is going to be, the greater your health is going to be overall, because we're talking the integral of spirit, mind, body connection. People don't seem to understand the importance of the spirit when it comes to health, even their mind when it comes to health. They only look at the body, the physical, because Western medicine has, conditioned us and programmed us to be thinking that way. So when you're looking at your spirit, mind, and body as a whole, you're looking at your energy system as a whole, the lymphatic system being responsive to the vibration and the frequency around you, or when you have good vibes around you and nurturing that, then you are happiest when you laugh. You're happiest when you're at peace. You're happiest when I'm doing praise and worship. That's when I'm happiest. So I do a lot of praise and worship. It raises my vibrational frequency. And did you know that there is a frequency of sickness and disease, that you're more susceptible to sickness and disease if your vibration is lower than 60 or 50? A good, healthy vibrational frequency of a body is 70 or 80. You just can't seem to get sick if you're vibrating.
What does this? I'm not familiar with. What does this vibration mean? Like, how is it? How is this measured? What are we talking about when you are discussing vibrations? Oh, did I lose you? Okay, sorry. I'm sorry,
Well, you
I
can
just
measure
lost you for a
the
minute. Are
object.
you, can you
Right.
hear me okay, Leslie?
Yes.
Okay, so if you could go back and just share with us again, what does that mean when we say, vibrations?
Vibration is simply energy again. A frequency. Everything has a frequency. Every object, everything God created has a vibrational frequency, a sound that it responds to, or um, energy rating, I guess you can call it.
And how is that
And
measured?
how is that measured? It's like there's a machine. It's hard to say, but when you feel chills from something, when you get a good feeling about something or somebody, it gives you chills. That's a high vibration. Um, Depression is a low vibration.
And and
Sadness,
and
uh,
is that you
negative
you had
thoughts.
mentioned like a frequency number. How are those numbers where would we get those measurements?
Research research on the vibrational frequency of things. You can Google it. There's I had to go back into my notes and find that site of doctors who have done the research on vibrational frequency specifically. So we're talking about sound therapy. We're talking about um, elements in the earth that God has provided to us for our nutrition, and why certain plants have a certain frequency that are conducive to your well-being and your immune system, building up your qi, your wei qi, your defense system, and things like that, as opposed to plants that actually are not healthy for you, or objects or things that are not healthy for you, but it has a low frequency. What's his name? Oh, what's his name? Moto. You know about the rice and water experiment?
I don't.
Where the Chinese man, Moto, I can't remember. I think it's Moto, Dr. Moto of China. He did that experiment. Everybody seems to be able to find him on YouTube. When you talk about the rice experience, when you do an experiment on your own. You have water and rice in 3 different jars. In one jar, you put in the word love. Another jar, you put on the word hate. Another jar, you just ignore completely. And watch what happens. Or even with a plant, you put the label "I love you" on one plant. Another plant, "I hate you." Another plant, just ignore completely. And you watch over time what happens to those 3 objects. And in comparison, because there's a frequency it's actually emitting or bringing an attraction to. It's like the law of attraction in a way. So we're
What?
talking
I've
about the
never heard
of
this
the earth.
before. So you're saying
Really?
that you literally write the words "I love you," and you're
Yes,
saying that those words alone can affect the growth of a plant.
absolutely. It attracts the
Fascinating.
positive vibration around you. Everything is alive, so everything is energy around you. The plants, objects, even crystals. There's so many things to talk about. You know how people in Christianity say crystals are of the devil? It's like, well, God created them for a reason. You need to find out what that was. Why? What is it going on with crystals? And they have a high frequency, attracting great forces of nature or from the cosmic universe. What God has created is weird, but it's effective. So we use vibrational theory, sound therapy, as well as crystals to enhance the activity or the energy that's going around that's positive. There's a lot of things in the Bible about crystals. That the high priest wore in the breastplate the crystals. They would light up when they went to Holy of Holies. So there's a lot of things I'm trying to tell you quickly. Understand how joy is so important in affecting the spirit, mind, and body. And we're talking about everything God has given us in this earth to help us: plants, crystals, things that have high vibrational frequencies to help us build ourselves up. When we eat good herbs God has given us that Chinese medicine has been studying for just eons, centuries. They know what plants are good for every ailment of the
They really
body.
do. They really do. I can't. So I am a person that is guided by my taste buds. I'll admit it. Like for me,
I like
if it tastes good, I consume it. If it doesn't, I leave it. And so when I'm in China, there are foods that just, I mean, absolutely grab me and pull me in. The flavors explode, and in China, there's such a huge choice of different foods. I mean, I can eat 100 different days, 3 times a day, and never have the same meal twice. And,
That's
and,
something.
which is disappointing to me in some ways and a blessing in other ways. There are some foods that are so putrid, I never even want to think about them again. But then there are other
That's right.
foods that are so amazing that I want them again, and I don't see them again for like, a couple years. But whenever I try to compliment like one of my friends or whatever, I'll be like, "Oh wow, this is amazing." So one of my favorite dishes that I have usually whenever I'm in Anhui province is this mushroom soup that they make, and it's a special kind of. In China, they don't say mushroom, so I always screw up by saying just the generic word for mushroom, and I'm always corrected because in English we just say mushroom, and a mushroom covers a huge array of different fungi. But in China, they have a name for everything, and they don't use a generic name for anything. And so I don't really know how to ask for this mushroom soup, but when it comes, I love it. But if I say this tastes good,
Good.
the host always corrects me by sharing what part of my body that soup is good for, because just tasting good is not is not their focus.
Right,
It-
right.
they'll tell me something crazy like, "Oh, this is good for the back of your earlobes," or this over here is good for your little toe. Like it's so specific, the little things that they tell me that it goes for. So when you're talking about herbs and I mean, this is my best friend who is a pastor of a church of about 4 million believers. He is kind of a tea connoisseur. And so he knows all the different teas, right down to, the leaf and the area and what it's good for. So if I taste a tea that he gives me and I say, "Oh, this is good," he immediately jumps in, almost like that's an offensive statement to him. Like, you have to say what it's good for. And so what you're saying kind of I identify with right away, because that is such a big part of the Chinese culture. Like, a good mother doesn't just give you good tasting food, but they give you food
Right.
that is good for your health in one way or the other.
That's right. And you're getting into an area where I have to master that into my daily life. But my husband has serious taste buds. He's not happy if food does not taste good. I want him happy, right?
I'm on board with him, yes.
Well, I have to mess it because he wants to be vegan. So I try to master really good cooking skills to help him have delicious food that is vegan. And doing pretty good so far. But it is a challenge, but it is important, especially building up his immunity. So, and it's important to eat right. It's important to, like I said, to be happy, doing things that makes your body happy, makes your mind happy, makes your spirit happy, because that's all defending your system, your lymphatic system, your immune system, to building up your Wei Qi or good, healthy Qi. Being in a healthy environment builds up your good Qi.
Well, when you say eating healthy, that means different things to different people. Kind of
Yeah.
give us an idea of a regimen that you think would be good for the body. Because I guarantee you, if you saw my diet, you'd be like, "No, just no."
Let's work it. Absolutely. Well, the magic word is the microbiome. Okay, so when I say healthy, I'm actually meaning happy. Okay, a happy gut is a healthy body. A happy body is a healthy gut. And the gut, a lot of emotions kind of sit in the gut. And it's like called the brain. And second brain is the stomach area. So, and I say eating healthy, I really mean eating happy. You want things, and the microbiome is kind of what tells you it's the language of love to your body. If you're having a microbiome type of diet, you're actually singing a love song to your body, is what I call it. You're loving your body.
I'm loving this interview now, because that's my favorite things that make food that makes me happy. That's my favorite to consume.
Okay, right. So you're looking at, just look up the microbiome and microbiome diet to find out what kind of foods or things are great. I drink kombucha. Kombucha really makes your flora, your gut happy. It's full of good microbiome happy stuff. Okay.
Okay, you're in Denver, right? Or you're in Colorado?
I'm in Colorado. Yes.
But not Denver. Okay, so in Colorado, I'm assuming that you guys got some high end probably you have access to high-end shops or different kind of commodity shops. So I have no idea what kombucha is. I've heard it.
Okay, well,
I've heard it, and I pretend that I know what it is because I don't want to feel stupid in a crowd. But I have no clue, to be honest, what kombucha is.
okay, it is a tea, but it's fermented with a type of a mushroom.
Okay.
um, it is what can I call it?
So this
What
is
is
not
that?
this is not a psychedelic mushroom.
No, no.
Okay.
It's you can look up DT.
I had to ask because you are in Colorado.
Right, right. But yeah, I don't do psychedelics. I don't mess with that.
Yeah.
But yes, it's a special fermented type of bottled tea, but it's kombucha and it has rich in probiotics, rich. I guess you could say it's happy microbiome things. Um,
Yeah, I
it,
mean,
it,
once you
if you drink
said
it straight,
once you said that it's fermented, I mean, for me, I really enjoy. So I probably eat kimchi on a regular basis. It's one
right,
of my favorite things. So once you said fermented, you're already at least talking my language a little bit when it comes to like the fermented things that I can get in Korea, which is some of my favorite things. I mean, even now being in the northern Germanic areas, they do a lot of fermented cabbage, but in their own way here, which I'm a big fan of. I don't think I've ever. I don't know what kombucha is made of.
it's a,
Is that
it's
a
made out
type
of
of leaf?
it's made out of the SCOBY mushrooms. You know, you're
Oh,
talking
SCOBY
about
mushroom.
mushrooms.
Oh, yes. Okay.
But SCOBY, they ferment it. They put it in something that's alcohol or something that fermented over time, and it releases organisms for your body. 1 billion, they say, 1 billion organisms for your body, for the flora, happy microbiome stuff. Okay, I don't want to call it anything. It's hard to tell people what it really
Yes,
is,
that's great.
but
Mushroom fermented, great, perfect. That it described perfectly for me.
natural, right? Natural, it's raw, it's vegan, it's gluten free and all of that, and it's just super for your gut, super to produce and make you feel happy. Some people don't like the way it tastes. Other people love it. I drink it straight. I love it. I put it in my husband's smoothie every day. When I make him a smoothie, I make him a high microbiome rich smoothie with the berries, but you have to have jicama. You know what jicama is?
I do not.
Okay, you have it looks like a round, huge potato, and it's I actually make coleslaw out of it sometimes, but it's great for the microbiome.
Okay.
And we call it sunchokes or Jerusalem artichokes. You find it all in the produce section. You chop those things up. You put them in a smoothie with your berries, your juice, whatever else you put in your smoothie, the greens. You put a lot of spinach in there, and I just blend it all up. And he drinks it every day.
And so you're
it helps
saying
with
that you're basically saying that one of the first steps, and correct me if I'm wrong. So if I'm not following, please, smack me on the hands. If
yeah,
one of the things that you're saying is one of the first things for preventive health or good health or a good immune system, you talked about happiness. You talked about a good spiritual, having your mind in a good spiritual place, and now you're talking
right,
about almost like a having a healthy gut. Now you've gotten
gotcha.
into certain drinks, herbs, those kind of things that you can consume that will help you have this healthy gut. Am I
Happy
following?
gut. You got it.
Okay,
Healthy,
good.
happy gut.
Great.
Happy spirit, happy mind, happy body. How do you really do that? Very good. Very good. So you eat foods that make you happy, and I mean on a biological level. We're talking about to the cellular level, what makes your cells happy, makes your body happy. It speaks to your mind happiness. It also produces good hormones, which produces a good self-defense system. It combats depression. It combats sadness. It combats negative thinking or habitual negative thinking. When you are putting stuff that is good for your body, it'll be harder for you to think negatively. And it's proven in my family anyway, but it is absolutely necessary to eat for a happy gut with a microbiome. If you understand the system of the microbiome and how it relates to how your body responds to what's organic, what is good for it. We can eat some toxic foods. When you're talking about toxic foods, we're talking about soda, chips, high salt, MSGs, foods that actually lower your frequency, kind of will produce negative thoughts and even negative moods or low frequency moods that aren't going to make you feel very happy. You'll have negative thoughts more susceptibly because you're eating toxic foods, which translates to toxic thinking. It's all connected. We have to remember spirit, mind, and body is all connected. What I put in is what's going to come out one way or another on different levels. So we really want to think about eating in a happier sense. What makes my body happy? What does my cells love? My cells love what is organic. My body is organic. Everything about us is organic. Why am I eating stuff that's not organic, that's processed food, that is actually feeding toxins in my body, which I'm saying to myself, if I want bad thoughts, eat something toxic. If I want to lose my joy, eat some toxic foods. Become moody after drinking a toxic Coca-Cola. I hate to say it, but everybody loves their sodas, but
oh, I do. I will be the first to admit, like, I'm in love with this. Is like nectar of the gods for me. I am absolutely in love with it. Now, keep in mind, I know it's not good, so I consume it knowing that it's not good for my body, but it tickles my taste buds, so I love it. I do have to actively cut myself off because it is bottled poison, and I recognize that. I just love it. I just love it. So it's
right.
So it's one of the things in life that I'm like, come to Papa, right. Nice, ice cold, you're mine. So it's a sin. It's a sin. I will admit it. So I don't defend it. I'm all ears. I'm listening to you.
I know. It's hard. Our bonds, we love what we eat. We love those treats. And I would never say deprive yourself of a good dessert. I just wouldn't do that.
And if you, I don't know if you know this or not. I don't know if in your Chinese medicine studies, if you come across any Chinese words, but you want to talk about ingenious marketing. In China, the characters for Coca-Cola is 可口可乐, which means a thirsty mouth is a happy mouth. So it's they equate the drinking of Coca-Cola with happiness, and I would endorse those that advertisement. So yeah, I'm sorry, not the message that you're wanting to share. I have to be honest and open about my sins.
I hear you. I understand. How do you do? But yeah, people are happy when they have a dessert, right? We eat our dinner and it's like, what's for dessert? It makes us happy.
Yes.
But that's a temporary happiness, and we're talking about long-term defense. So in terms of self-defense and immunity building and protecting yourself from any type of disease and having a head start to combat it, and because many people say they have COVID-19, they didn't know it, they didn't show any symptoms. Well, they had a strong immune system, right? So we're talking about if you're really conscious of,
and I think that what you just said is very key, because my wife, we're here in Sweden. My wife has an aunt, an uncle, and two cousins that are doctors that work here in Scandinavia. She had her two brothers. So she only has two brothers. Both of them also work at the hospitals in Stockholm. And one of her brothers, we think, had the COVID-19. But during the early days of the breakout in Sweden, the Swedish authorities really didn't feel that there was a need to test people that are not showing symptoms. Because if you're not showing symptoms, why test you? Why tell you about a disease if you're not feeling anything from it? So when he got sick, he just went home, he got over it, and he went back to work at the hospital. And so what you said was right on the button, that there were a lot of people that got the disease. It could have been that we were exposed to it because we were with my brother-in-law in Stockholm during the time that he was sick. We took no precautionary measures, hugs, sitting close and eating together, hanging out together, doing board games together. So we took none of the precautions that, would have been recommended by the WHO or the CDC during those early days in March and April. When he was sick, when he was coughing, when he was infected
Right.
with something. We never felt that we got anything, though we are pretty certain that we were exposed to it because both of my brother-in-laws are in the hospital every single day. They're surrounded by this every single day. My youngest son is actually spending his summer in Stockholm together with one of his uncles that's working at the hospital, and so he's exposed to it every day. So far, none of us, have shown any symptoms. So I think that this is really important to point out that
Yeah.
what you're talking about, I think, is really, really important for Christians to understand that there might be other ways to protect your body from diseases, not just from
Amen.
COVID-19, but other diseases other than isolating yourself. And which, I mean, as you and I talked about,
Yeah.
isolation could actually be counterproductive for good
Absolutely.
health.
You got it. You have it. Absolutely. So we're working on getting outside, right? We're working on getting in the sun, right? And yeah,
Getting in the
vitamin
sun.
D.
Yeah, you just brought up something. I was listening to a report. I know that your time is short. I would really love to have you back on to continue this conversation when you have time. But before we wrap up, I just want to ask you really quick if you've heard anything about the vitamin D deficiency studies regarding those that have had critical. They've been in the critical stages of having COVID-19, meaning that they had to be on respirators or they were almost dead or they did die. It has now been shown that 96% or in the high 90s of those that had the COVID-19 and it was life-threatening had extreme deficiencies in vitamin D. Have you heard anything about this?
Absolutely, absolutely, absolutely. I think that should be big news. Understanding how important it is to get out in the sun.
Well,
And help.
how do you get vitamin
I-
D for the people that are listening to this and don't know?
Well, you eat right, all the fruits and vegetables that you can. You look up anything that's high in vitamin D, food-rich vitamin D foods. Get out in the sun.
Yeah,
That's basically it.
yeah, so being out in the sun naturally provides your body with the mechanism to create its own vitamin D. And if you are
Right.
in your house quarantined and not out in the sun, you could actually, I'm not saying that this is for certain, but I'm just saying this could actually be a way of bringing down your immune system, having a vitamin D deficiency, and being more exposed to not just COVID-19, but maybe other diseases as well. That could,
That's,
make your
That's
week
exactly
less
right.
enjoyable.
And you have to look at the nursing homes. You know why nursing homes have the higher rates of cases for COVID-19 and people dying out of the nursing homes? Not just because they're elderly. It is because they're not outside as much.
Yes.
The one,
Yes.
I have a friend who I am near Denver. I'm in Aurora, Colorado, which is I'm just a hop, skip, and jump from Denver. But I have a friend in Fort Garland, Colorado. She does retreats. She has a beautiful mountain home that she's outdoors all the time. She is 81 years old. She got COVID-19, and she beat it. She got over it just fine.
Wow.
And I'm going to tell
Praise
you a
God.
story. But I do attribute that to her being outdoors more. She doesn't stay in the house. Elderly people who are in the house or in their home, their nursing home, they don't let them get outside too often. They don't get the sun too often, and that is a shame. That to me is almost criminal because I'm a healthy, conscious person, and if you really want to, lower your immune system, stay indoors. So I really question this thing about, well, stay indoors, stay home for the COVID-19, don't spread it. When you need to be outside, it is a shame that they're requiring people to stay indoors during that time. But yeah, it lowered the numbers. It was a good thing overall for a temporary time. I just, prayed that people had enough sun before they isolated themselves, that they got out enough before they went indoors. But yeah, we had to lower the curve, which actually allowed people to have time to develop whatever they needed to help people combat it, to have their strategy to combat with COVID on the medical system level, where they had to have all the products or the produce for everybody, for the hundreds of thousands of people, to have enough medicine or supplies or things like that. So we needed to have people have time to develop that, which being indoors and having that isolation period, allowing us the time to develop that. But this time is over. I believe this time for us in America, they're just now getting back to work. People are just now getting back out. It's been 2 months of isolation, 2.5, 3 months of isolation. That's too long. So they're seeing spikes in numbers of the COVID, and I think it'd be very interesting to do the research as to how much being isolated and being away from the sun actually contributing to this, any type of spike of people coming back out into society and getting the COVID and getting sick.
Yeah, I think that you have touched on a couple of things that are really important for us to know as an audience, which is you talked about, our mental, emotional, spiritual health, which actually can be decreased if we are isolated in our home and not able to provide for our families, which could add anxiety, could add stress, could take away from that happy chi that you had mentioned earlier. If being outside in the sun, and you have touched on something really big that I didn't even think about when it comes to nursing homes. I've always thought of nursing homes as being more susceptible because their bodies are older. I mean, it's usually, people are not told, like here in Sweden, people are told, people that are over a certain age are at higher risk. But you just brought up something that might be interesting to look at, whether it's causation or correlation, where do older people stay indoors more? Could that be, something we have seen, for instance, here in Sweden, the majority of the people are not, and I know this because my family that works at the hospital, the majority of the people that are coming in as COVID patients, which never reached the numbers that they thought it would here in Sweden. They were prepared for it. They had opened up a stadium in downtown Stockholm. We had a tent put just in our little village beside the clinic, preparing 2 tents, preparing for an overflow of people with COVID, and neither of those tents were used. The stadium in Stockholm was shut down. It was never used. But the majority of the people that we saw, the overwhelming, so I'm going to say high 90s. I won't give a specific number, but I do know that they were either elderly, from the elderly homes, where there was just crazy outbreaks, and 2, from the immigrant community. And the immigrant community that was hit the hardest were those that were from areas around the equator, like Somalia, areas where people are immigrants into Sweden, that their bodies had developed, melatonin in their skin that required almost more daily sunshine for them to produce vitamin D. But now being in Scandinavia, they would be, need to stay outside more time because there's less sunshine available on a daily basis than what they would have had in a different area. So their body's ability to naturally create vitamin D, already being challenged by being in Scandinavia, now being forced to stay indoors. What you have talked about with outdoor activity, feeding your body happy foods, microbiomes, and then when you were talking about just the nature of your spirit, these 3 things already, I believe, are an amazing start for talking about preventative measures of creating a good and healthy immune system.
Very good. Absolutely. I appreciate all of your input and understanding. It's exciting to me to just be able to share this information and get it out there.
I love it. I wish I had another hour or 2 together with you. I know that we just basically scratched on the surface. I hope that we can have you back. I know that your time is limited. Let me ask you one last thing before you go. Yes. If people are listening to this and they're wanting to know, how can I get in touch with you? How can I find out about your ministry? How can I learn more about what you have been doing when it comes to Chinese medicine and natural healing and those kind of things? How can people find more information about you and your ministry?
Thank you. Yes, you can absolutely find us on our website first at Etz Chaim Healing. And Etz Chaim is in Hebrew for Tree of Life. And it is spelled as ETZHAYIM healing.com. And you can email us at chaimhealing@gmail.com, or you can call us at 720-744-0453. You can reach us and we have tons of videos on YouTube. You can find our YouTube channel. It is Hayim Healing, spelled the same way, ETZ, first word, Hayim, Hayim, second word, healing. And you'll find our YouTube channel and many videos that we have out and teachings that we have. But most likely you want to find us on our website, because our website itself is a great resource for health and wholeness. We have tons of information on that website.
I would love to do this again with you. Anybody that's listening to this podcast, again, the website is etzhayimhealing.com, ETZHAYIMHEALING.com. Go to their website, check them out. You can find Leslie on social media. You can find their YouTube clips. I am definitely going to be looking into this more. Leslie, it has been a pleasure. Thank you so much for joining us.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. I really appreciate you, and God bless you.
And God bless you as well.
All right. Shalom.
Bye-bye. There is so much to unpack, and I know that there are going to be Christians that are listening, to this podcast that are thinking that, well, I think that some of this stuff goes into regions that I have questions about. And I hope that Leslie comes back on, because I would love to talk to her about the spiritual side. One of the things that we didn't have time to get into is especially because of my connection with Buddhism, we just did a book. If you haven't heard of the book, it's called Leaving Buddha. It's available now. It talks about the spiritual darkness of Buddhism, Hinduism, and how it is impacting the New Age movements in the church world. And this is something that Christians need to be hyper aware of, but also need to be open about, because here's the thing. And I truly believe this. There are times where we see Christian practices that we are not familiar with, so we automatically label those practices as wrong because we're not familiar with them. And so if we're not familiar with them, and what we are familiar with is right in the sight of God, right? All of us believe that we're following the right path. So if we see something that is outside of our knowledge, or something that is different, or something that we're not familiar with, then we write it off as being, this must not be of God. I can remember my first trip to Jerusalem, going into these Orthodox churches where holy relics are being, housed. And I want to go in. I want to see, the different relics, whether they're original or not. I want to know what the stories are. I want to kind of know, how much of this is true. What can I learn from these relics that are housed in the churches? But then I go into the churches and I see incense being burned. I didn't grow up in a church. So maybe that's why I'm a little bit maybe open to certain things, because I don't have a Christian background in the same way that many other people do, where you grew up seeing Christ prayed to in one way, where you saw him being worshiped to in one way, where the scripture was interpreted in one way. And so what you do is you miss out on a lot. And by the way, I mean, the church practices that are being practiced by the Orthodox Church, whether it's the Assyrian Church, the Russian Church, the Eastern Orthodox Church, when you go into these different churches, you start to see things that you're simply not familiar with. And I've talked about this many times. I have had the same experience when I'm with the Coptic Christians in Egypt. I had the first experience, when I first met with the Underground House Church Christians in China. Their practice, their songs, their praise and worship, their ceremonies, they just take place in a different order, in a different way than I was familiar with. I didn't walk into a church where there was a deacon greeting me at the door, giving me a weekly leaflet, where I just automatically know I walk into a sanctuary where there's pews, and the church will start off, with an announcement, maybe a couple jokes, praise and worship, interrupted by another announcement, praise and worship, offering, service, preaching, end with a song, and the benediction, right? I mean, that's kind of the generic schedule that we all go through as Christians. And that's what, in the West at least, we're pretty familiar with. Sunday morning services. But when I get into China, and I'm smuggled in the middle of the night, going into somebody's home, immediately being asked to start praying for people and speaking. Praise and worship has to be done at a whisper level, if at all, because of the risk that it poses for security. My first couple years was like, whoa, wait a minute, what is this? And in my mind, I thought, okay, this is why I'm here. I'm here to show them how it's really done by real Christians. But slowly, God began to show me that you're not here to teach them, though you think you are. You're here to learn. I'm going to teach you things. But you have to give up your cultural identity in order to hear from me. And so with this conversation that we just had, I would love the opportunity to dig in deeper, to ask her about, what are the, because she mentioned crystals. Well, for me, crystals. You start talking about crystals, I'm like, that's some, hocus pocus stuff. But she's absolutely right when you start talking about the temple sacrifices, the ceremonies that went into the temple ceremonies. There were jewels. There were rubies. There was gold. There was silver. And I, in the beginning, I might have thought, well, and I just read through these different stones with, great speed, being bored by all of the details of everything that's in there. But I think that this sister is absolutely right in the way that there's a purpose for everything that God does. It's not just aesthetics for aesthetics value. One of the things I love about being in Germanic areas like Switzerland, Germany, Austria, Norway, Scandinavia, one of the things I love is the way in which beauty is incorporated with practicality. There are so many places, where I go, especially when there's new wealth, like in the Middle East, where there's a lot of oil money that can come in and things can just have this gaudy appearance because it's just a lot of stuff that is made for appearance only, but it actually it impedes practicality. It's not practical, but it looks nice. And I love it when things are made practically and the design itself is beautiful, but also practical. There's an aesthetic value in my mind with practicality as well. Now, not just practicality, because things can be so practical that they have no aesthetic value at all. But when you have both incorporated, and I kind of feel like that's what we see when God does so many things. When I think of the temple, the very place where God was to be given praise, I have to believe that everything within that temple was to give God praise. And to give God praise, there had to be sacrifice, practicality, and beauty. I see it in nature. I'm in nature every single day. I love being in nature. I love being in the mountains every day. Right now, the ski season has just ended. So last week, I did my last day of skiing and I almost cried. I could actually still go skiing, but I would have to hike through areas that have now become almost like swamp because that snow was so high. So in the valley areas where the snow is melted, it's almost like walking on sponges. When you step, you just sink into water and moss in order to get up to those areas where the snow still is. So there are people still skiing, and practically speaking, I could still ski. But now I've adopted mountain biking season. So my wife and I have been mountain biking every day. But one of the beautiful things about mountain biking in the mountains, so we're going up there's this beautiful mountain very close to where I'm at. It's called Mittekleppen. And it is absolutely, and the roads are still, beside the roads, you got 3, 4, 5 feet of snow. but riding your bike into those mountains. You see the practicality of the snow melting from these mountains, flowing into the streams, and the streams flow into a river. And then the river becomes one of the biggest in all of Sweden, called the Ljusnan. And so you have the Ljusnan River that's, flowing through, cutting through the middle of Sweden. But it all kind of starts in the mountains where I'm at right now, to the west, on the border of Norway. The mountains are not just beautiful and majestic, but everything serves everything. There is this practicality and beauty and balance to that which God has made. So I'm going to try to reach out and see if we can bring her back, because when we are faced with diseases like COVID-19, like the pandemic, I think it's absolutely essential that Christians understand that there are preventive measures that we can take without necessarily needing medication, without necessarily needing vaccinations, without necessarily needing to have outside drugs injected into our veins. These foreign bodies, these alien elements that are, injected into our systems. Now, I'm not saying that that's bad. I'm not saying it's something that we shouldn't do. So, I've had my yellow fever vaccinations before I go into different parts of Africa, which is required before I go there. I served in the military in the Persian Gulf during the 90s, so I had to have the anthrax vaccinations, which, there were people that argued that they were extremely dangerous. I took them. I lined up. I was told to. I did it. It wasn't a problem for me. But I'm not necessarily saying that it's good or bad. I'm just saying that maybe God has given us the very elements that we need on earth for having a healthy body. I'm just trying to explore more and find out how exactly Coca-Cola fits into that equation. I want to thank you guys so much for joining us for another Back to Jerusalem podcast. I pray that this podcast was as much of a blessing for you as it was for me. Again, I'm Eugene Bach, coming to you live on delay from somewhere within the borders of Sweden. God bless you.